Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, and with my wife, Nathalie Blackham. Great to have your company today. We're the program that looks at Israel. We look at the news from Israel. We look at what's behind the news, what the mainstream media are not necessarily telling you. And we look at what the Bible says and the Hebraic understanding, the Jewish roots. Now, first of all, we are talking about the support of Christians for Israel and or the international support, I should say, of Christians around the world for Israel. And the news is that 1,000 pastors visited Israel to stand with Israel, and not just that, but to go to Judea and Samaria. If you remember, we've been talking about the importance and the battle for Judea and Samaria, and the 1,000 pastors visited Judea and Samaria, which is quite a miracle, really, bearing in mind we've just had, or we are just in the ceasefire, but had the war with Gaza, and the security situation isn't always good in Judea and Samaria. But the 1,000 pastors came anyway, Nathalie.
And they went to Shiloh.
That's right, ancient Shiloh they came for a tour, which is by the way, it's the largest advocacy group to have visited Israel and to have gone to the ancient Shiloh site. It's in the Binyamin area, and it's making the area a how can I put it? It's a place where you can go now. That people are accepting it as a destination for visits for tourists.
Yes, you're right. There is much more people going there.
And these 1,000 pastors, influencers, were representing tens of millions of Americans. It was an initiative of Friends of Zion together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Israeli government. And the delegation had visited the Nova site, where unfortunately there was the massacre on the 7th of October. They visited the Western Wall and Mount Herzl, but their highlight was ancient Shiloh
in Samaria,
why?
Which is
kind of interesting because we were near that area just the other day. It's the first time that a delegation this size has been to the ancient Shiloh, and it's interesting because it's starting to attract people from abroad, including United States House Speaker Mike Johnson was there, and US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee. The fact that an official delegation led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is coming to ancient Shiloh sends a clear message that Judea and Samaria is no longer the backyard of Israel, but is an important destination for leaders from around the world. Governor of the Binyamin Regional Council and chairman of the Yesha Council, Yitzhak Gan, said, "This huge delegation coming to Binyamin is more proof that Judea and Samaria is important for leaders around the world. I commend Foreign Minister Gideon Saar and Friends of Zion for their strong support for Binyamin and Judea and Samaria." And absolutely amazing that so many people were able to visit there. This is logistically a lot of coaches taking them to see ancient Shiloh. And if you're interested in visiting it, when you come here, there's a lot of information on the internet about it, so you can look it up and practical ways that they can visit.
I know, and it's where they are keeping the red heifers.
Right.
So it's like there is a lot of people now going over there. It's on the Road 60, which is called the Road of the Patriarchs. It's in the north of up north to Jerusalem. And it's just wonderful to see so more Christians now going over there.
And it's the place where the tabernacle was in Israel, so you can see a lot of it, the replica, and there's a place where you can see a movie about how important the tabernacle was, and it was the place of prayer as well, Nathalie, wasn't it?
Yes, this is where Hannah was praying for Samuel, and Samuel was going to be the prophet who was going to anoint the first king of Israel. So this was just amazing and very special.
Another important news item that's come up is the discovery of an ancient Hasmonean wall unearthed in the heart of Jerusalem. I should say that all the time discoveries are being made, excavations are being done. Why is that so important? Well, first of all, it's very important for us to know the history of an area, which you can do by archaeology, but it's also important because it's proof of the Jewish connection to the land of Israel for centuries, which the mainstream media is trying to disconnect, calling it the West Bank, some parts of Jerusalem as the West Bank even, when they are ancient Jerusalem has been in the hands of the Jewish people for centuries now. The ancient Hasmonean wall was exposed during an excavation by the Israel Antiquities authorities, one of the most complete and longest sections of Jerusalem's ancient fortifications to date. And when you visit Jerusalem, you can see within the old city, you can go and visit the tunnels, and you can visit the city of David, highly recommended, where you can also see the tunnels that were dug. Now, the archaeologists uncovered this Hasmonean period city wall built in the late 2nd century BCE. The wall was discovered on the grounds of the Tower of David, adjacent to the citadel complex. The work was carried out in preparation for the new Shalig wing of archaeology, art and innovation, which will be located next to the Tower of David Jerusalem Museum. According to Dr. Amit Ram and Dr. Marian Zindel, excavation directors, the newly uncovered section, known in ancient sources as the first wall, is striking in both size and state of preservation, which is very important. That not only are they discovering ancient ruins, but they are well preserved. The wall is built of large, heavy stones, typical of the period. Originally, it rose to a height of more than 10 meters, though only the lower portions survived during the Second Temple period. The Hasmonean wall encircled Mount Zion, found in the city of David, in the citadel courtyard, and it's connected also to the outer face of the western wall of Jerusalem's old city. Historical sources describe the wall in detail. Flavius Josephus, who many of you will know, who writes extensively about Israel, outlined its route and its gates. It was not the result, its destruction, of natural decay. It was purposeful, that which does raise questions as to why it was destroyed and who ordered that. Now, it's all very interesting, this discovery, the Hasmonean period, because we are coming up to, what are we coming up to, Nathalie? Hanukkah.
Which is a story with the Maccabees.
The Maccabeans. And Hanukkah is where we light the candles, but they're not the same as the menorah. Why is the Hanukkah candles or candelabra different from the menorah? You could buy a Hanukkah, they're even called, thinking it's a menorah, but it's not, Nathalie, is it?
No, because the menorah is 7 branches, which is what was in the temple. The Chanukia, which is the name for the menorah for Hanukkah, is like 8 plus 1, so it's 9 branches, because they had for 8 days some oil, which was a miracle, and so it's like every year now. And Jesus did that. We see it in John 10, chapter 10, that he went to the Feast of Dedication, which the Feast of Dedication is Hanukkah, and is during the winter time usually. So Yeshua was going to the temple, was going for this festivity, which was a new one. Obviously, it wasn't like the 3 big festivals. This was added when the Hasmoneans were fighting the Romans, and they win, and they reign for a while, and they have the temple rededicated again. So this was very special.
Which is why I was mentioning the Hasmonean wall.
That's it.
Because it's connected to Hanukkah.
That's it.
Now, we've in a piece of period of ceasefire. The war with Gaza is temporarily on hold, although there are skirmishes, and some people say there's a kind of a war going on anyway, but officially there's a ceasefire. But there are still consequences of both the war and before the war, October the 7th. The IDF has reported a sharp rise in the number of injured soldiers, in the number of disabled IDF veterans. At least 22,000 have been injured, IDF soldiers, Israeli soldiers in the Gaza war. Meanwhile, Haaretz News says the number of injured may be much, much higher because of discrepancies between IDF numbers and hospital figures and Ministry of Health figures. On the Day of Appreciation for the Wounded of the IDF and security forces, the Ministry of Defense Rehabilitation Department, we've talked about them before, published updated figures as to the scope of the wounded in Israel. As of December 2025, there is roughly 82,400 injured in Israel. That's injured IDF soldiers. And as we say, 22,000, the numbers I think are much higher, have been wounded and injured. And there is a work to be done, Nathalie, in the country to rehabilitate all these soldiers. By 2030, they estimate that there will be 100,000 IDF veterans. Now, first of all, we've talked about the amount of people or amount of soldiers who've been killed in Gaza and in the war and in other areas. We've also talked about the consequences of that. Well, even if a soldier survives and is injured, that has a consequence for the family, especially if they're severely injured. It changes all what we call life-changing injuries, because that means the whole of their life is altered. They have to have a special car, special housing, and it changes all their plans for the future, for work, marriage, etc. So there's a big, when we talk about the 22,000, these are individuals, but there's also 22,000 at least families.
Yes, and Israel is not so big. So it's like, it's like a number here might be much bigger than in another big country.
Now, not only is the 22,000 injured at least, but there's also officially 31,000 with post-traumatic stress and psychological injuries. There's been thousands of soldiers each month have been registering for post-traumatic stress, mental illness, treatments, and there is more and more. This is a growing area in Israel of a need for them to be treated.
I heard that there is a farm in the Negev which is taking some of them. So they are in nature, they are doing farming, they are doing vegetations, things like that. But it's like there is a big demand because they can't come back to normal life. They need to have a transition.
Right. Now, one of the other consequences of the war, of the cost of living increase in Israel, of the difficulties, the stress and everything, is that many Israelis are seeking to leave. And in the news it was reported that thousands of Israelis lined up for appointments to obtain Portuguese citizenship. A walk-in event led by the Portuguese embassy in Tel Aviv drew massive crowds as demand among Israelis surges for EU passports. Now, I should say that these are people who have some Portuguese lineage or family, or they are originally from Portugal. This wasn't people who just wanted a Portuguese passport. Apparently, the line stretched from the entrance of the complex down to its underground parking as the Portuguese embassy announced that it would allow people to wait in person without advanced scheduling. That's something unusual these days. As I've mentioned before, if you want an appointment with Israeli government ministries, you have to normally obtain an appointment, which you can do online. The embassy announced that it would hold the special Old Times Are Back, Nathalie, it says, event, temporarily bypassing its chronically overloaded online appointment system, and it was open to all Portuguese citizens. So many people sadly are looking to leave Israel because of the stress of living here, Nathalie. And I know that you've got things today to share with our friends at home, and we look forward to hearing.
So when we hear all these stories that you are saying, we can see that there is a big transformation that's happening, and we can see Israel is always at the center of what's happening in the world. And so you can have a sense of there is a big shift and there is things happening, bad things, but also good things, because we need to see that God is always behind all the stories and he knows what he's doing. And I'm going to touch on this subject, saying that the earth and the heavens are being transformed. Okay, so I was reading Isaiah 24 this week, and it really struck me because I didn't realize how much Isaiah the prophet was writing. I mean, I knew that he was writing about the end of days, but I know about what's happening in at the end of Isaiah, but like 24. Suddenly I was reading, and I'm going to read it to you, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really part also of the last days, and it really struck me. So it's the beginning of chapter 24. They speak about the devastation of the earth, okay, and then this is verse 18, and I'm going to read it a bit to you because it's always great to read the Bible together. So it's written, the floodgates of the heavens are open, the foundations of the earth shake, the earth is broken up, the earth is split asunder, the earth is thoroughly shaken, the earth reels like a drunkard, it sways like a hurt in the wind, so heavy upon it is the guilt of his rebellion, and he falls never to rise again. And there is another passage also in the Bible, in Psalm 102, and listen to what they say, because it's just amazing, and it speaks a bit about the same thing. So he said, so is verse 26 in Psalm 102, okay? Previously you laid the earth's foundation, and the heavens are your handiwork. They will perish, but you will endure. All of them will wear out like a garment. You will exchange them like a cloak, and they will pass on. But you will remain the same, and your years are endless. So I think it's very important that we know that God is going to last forever, that he's not changing. The earth is transformed. By the way, I read an article, it was in the Independent, and the scientist, it was dated from February 2025, and they were saying that scientists are discovering that the inner core of the earth is changing, is transforming, and they didn't know that, and they can see that there is some transformation there also deep in the earth. So God has created the heaven and the earth. They are connected together, by the way, because sometimes we don't, we think we're on the earth and there is heaven, but we are connected, which is, again, you go back into the prayer of Yeshua, the prayer of our Father, that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So again, you can see that there is a correlation between both. There is something happening. And so I was reading like some Torah sages were speaking about these garments. There is few passages, by the way, you can read it, about what the transformation of the earth. and it's like an old cloth that is going to be taken away. Okay, so this is what is written now. Let's put my glasses so it's easier for me to read. And it's what is written. All of them will wear out like a garment. So Ramban, he was a Torah sage, said, describe a very thin substance, entirely devoid of form, but having potential, which was the primary matter created from absolutely nothingness by God, which is very amazing because the scientists are finding all these things now. But do you think that the Torah sages knew that a long time ago? Because everything is in the Torah. It's just amazing, okay? So this substance is known as Homer Ahiuli, which is in Greek is called Hili, not like Hyly, which means matter, okay? So it's much smaller than a neutron and proton, and because every time scientists find out this is the smaller thing, and suddenly they say, oh no, there is something smaller. And so they were already speaking about that. The Torah sages was already speaking about that. It was from this Hili that God then formed and brought everything else into existence. Listen to that. Clothing the forms and putting them into finished condition. All shapes and forms which we see and feel are merely garments cloaking the original Hili. It was God's plan that these garments remain in existence for only a limited period of time, after which they wear out and vanish. And he said, though the prophets say, Isaiah 51, I was telling you, Isaiah was saying more things at the end of his book. The heavens shall vanish like smoke, and the earth will wear out like a garment, and those who dwell in it shall die in like manner. And so God is going to change and transform things, which is very, very interesting, because again, this year we're going to go into 2026 soon, which we've passed already the Hebrew year, which is 5786, okay? And again, 6 is the letter Vav, and Vav is correlation. And correlation means that there is a connection between heaven and earth, that we are going to have a big transformation. So it's very interesting because I was finding these things, and then I was looking at the year, and suddenly I find all these things about transformation, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. And you kind of have a sense when you get very close. If you take the time to meditate, if you take the time to be close to God, to refine your soul, to clean it, to repent, to heal, all these things make us more able to hear His voice and able to see what He's doing. And we are in a time which is very exciting. Now, transformation of all these things seems to be very hard, but it's things that are happening. And if you remember, during the time of Noah, because it's written in Matthew, like, as in the time of Noah, during the time of Noah, there was a big change too, and in the heavenlies and on earth, and we are connected. And there was another passage also that I wanted to tell you, that again is in Isaiah 13, and he said, therefore I will make the heavens tremble and the earth will shake from its place. So if you also, the scientists know that during the time of Noah, before the time of Noah, we had the seasons where it was like Gan Eden. There was no winter and summer. It was not hot or too cold. It was perfect. And the earth tilled, and we had seasons. But we know that things are going to change. And again, he said that the earth is going to shake again. And we know that he wants us to go back, and even better, I think, like really his dream, God's dream, is like we will be humanity with him. The one who chose to be with him will be with him. We will walk on the new earth. They will have a new heaven. And we are in this part of transformation. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but we can feel that we are into this new move and it's happening, but we know that he endures. And when it's written in Hebrew is that Ata hu, you are him. Ata is you and who is him. So it's like he is the creator. He's he, and he's not going to change. He's the one who was, who is, and will be. And we can hang on to him because we know that he has the best future for us. Doesn't mean that it's always easy. I never say that, and I tell you in my life, it's never been always easy. But we are going somewhere, and he's with us, and he's not changing.
And the Jewish people are waiting for Mashiach. Rabbis who are talking about this, about the preparation, the expectation for Mashiach to come. Who is Mashiach? So it's something many Jewish people are looking for, and these are the days that we're living in. Well, it's been great to be with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to visit the website, which is www.israelfirst.org, and there's a lot of information on there. You can watch the program again. You can watch previous programs. You can get up-to-date news on our media page on news. It's a daily news story from Israel. As we don't have time on the program to share everything that's happening, you can also subscribe to the weekly update, and you can also support us. It's because of your support that we're able to do the program today. So please, if you're not supporting us, please consider that and go to our donate page. And remember, we are the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.